Hello everyone. Today, as always, I have 3 more amazing horror books for you to read. What I think makes a really good horror book are not only the terrors inside, the monsters, the vampires, the werewolves, what have you, but it's the way the story is told. And these 3 books just tell an amazing story while still giving you all the chills and all the thrills and all the horrors that you could want. And I absolutely loved all 3 of these. I can't wait to tell you about them. I want to remind you that I have horror books for sale, and you can find the books you see on your screen along with other books at the link in the description. You could also join my Patreon, and every month you will get free horror books. You will get free short horror stories from me and other authors as well. And be sure to check that out if you want to help support the channel. All right, let's get started. So the first book I want to talk about today is called American Rapture. This is a kind of religious horror story. It's an apocalyptic horror story, but it's very, very well told. It's one of my favorite horror books of the year, actually. And you might have heard about this book. You might have already read it, but it deserves the accolades it's been getting, in my opinion. This is about a girl, and she has grown up very sheltered. Her parents are extremely religious. Her and her brother have been homeschooled. They're not allowed to have friends outside of their religious community. They're not allowed any outside influences, like television sets, a computer, a phone, anything like that, because everything's like that is of the devil, kind of. That's the kind of mentality she grew up in, very, very sheltered from the outside world. Her parents discover that her brother is gay, and they kicked him out unceremoniously because, of course, in a household like that, that's not going to fly. And that's been weighing on her ever since it happened. But we are going to witness an apocalypse kind of unfolding at the beginning of this book. But this one is different. This virus that takes people over turns them into sort of like zombies, bloodthirsty, ready to tear your flesh apart with their teeth. But it also makes them very aggressively sexual. Yeah, so they want to do sexual things very aggressively with other people who are not infected, either before they eat them or even afterwards. It's a very sick, twisted thing that's happening when they get infected with this virus. And when she witnesses her parents being taken over by this virus and them doing various things, of course, she has to run away because they are turning their sights on her. And so she runs from the mess. But the thing is, because she's been so sheltered, that's a great thing about this book. I don't want to say she's going to take a road trip, because that might imply something fun and carefree, hey, road trip. But she is going to travel and meet a bunch of different people during the course of this catastrophe that's taking place. And like any good apocalyptic story, the people she meets might not be good people. They might not necessarily be bad, but in an apocalypse like this, when it's every person for themselves, we are going to find out that she can't trust some of these people that she thought she could, and other people who might seem a little odd and strange, she might be able to trust them a little more. But because she's been so sheltered and lived this kind of lifestyle, this is all new to her, this outside world and the things she's going to experience, and we're witnessing it through her eyes. So it makes for a very effective way to tell this story. From the religious trauma she's suffered throughout her life, all of a sudden thrown into the middle of this apocalyptic event and this virus that's taking over people. and experiencing and witnessing things that she couldn't even imagine. And she's trying to search for her brother, hoping against hope that he is somehow unaffected and still alive, and that they can perhaps find each other again. And there's also going to be this religious cult involved that wants to kill anybody who's trying to stop this or trying to survive this apocalypse, because they believe it's a punishment from God, and anybody trying to stop it is against their God. So there are dangers from this virus. People can have the virus without even showing symptoms. So it's kind of like the thing, who's infected and who's not. And like I said, she's got to deal with this apocalypse. She's got to deal with the human threat. And it's all makes for a very horrific, very tense novel. And it's filled with a lot of heart and a lot of emotion. It's also about family and forging friendships in a world like this. And basically learning who you can trust and ways to let you know that they can be trusted. But she has to experience all this for herself and learn very, very quickly, because she's never had that before in her life. I absolutely love this book. It's fantastic. It's frightening. It's bloody. It's got everything you want. And I do highly recommend it. And there is a link down below where you can pick up your copy in the description. And next we have Victorian Psycho. I really loved this book. This takes place in the early 1900s, I believe. So it is kind of historical fiction, and it's about a woman who accepts a job to be kind of a caretaker for this rich family's children. And like any rich family at the time, they have a bunch of servants who they always kind of ignore and degrade, while still trying to tell people how benevolent they are for giving them a job. You know, typical rich people behavior. But she is a psycho. She is a complete sociopath. She has killed before, but she convinces herself that, you know, it needed to be done and she did nothing wrong. And as she's taking care of these kids, the kids are, of course, rich and spoiled and bratty, but she gets back with them by telling them these horrific stories to scare the crap out of them and to keep them in line. But the thing is, we're going to find out that she took this job because this family has a very dark secret that concerns her that we don't know about at first, and you're going to have to read about it to find out. But there is going to be a secret revealed, and that is going to end horrifically for some people. And again, you'll just have to read about that. But what I really loved about this book is that it is in the first person perspective from this Victorian psycho. And it's filled, undermined, complete, all the way through with this very dark humor. I mean, yeah, she's a psychopath and she's done some horrible things, but I love this character. Like, I couldn't help but kind of root for her a little bit, considering the circumstances, because this family is just awful. At one point, the father kind of becomes enamored with her, and the wife notices, and then the wife just starts treating her very, very poorly as she's trying to keep things together, because she has a plan for being there concerning this secret, and she doesn't want to expose herself too soon while she's taking care of these kids. And yeah, things just get horrific. But like I said, it's so funny in places, some of these thoughts she's having. And so to keep you grinning, it's like a psychopath that you'll probably love, even though you might feel bad because she's done some bad things. But it's a very, very exciting book. And of course, it's going to be filled with bloodshed. But it's a story of her and revealing the secret and what it all means and how she's experiencing all this with this rich family. And it was just a fantastic read. I absolutely loved it. Yes, of course, I highly recommend it. And again, I will leave a link down below where you can pick up your copy in the description. And next we have an indie book by an author I've covered, I believe, twice on this channel already. This is his third one. And this one is great. I know it has kind of a long, weird title, but he's telling you right away what this book's about. And it's called The Confessions of a Vampire in the Back of a New York City Taxi Cab. So that's a mouthful. But that's basically what it is. And in this case, there's a vampire. He's in New York City. And he's very, very hungry. He hasn't been able to feed. This is set post-pandemic, post-COVID. And he has an acute sense of smell. In this world, vampires can smell diseases on people. And they can't drink the blood of these diseased people because it will negatively affect them and maybe even kill them. But he is starving, and he has to find in this big city teeming with people, somebody who has not been infected by COVID or has some other kind of diseases, and he can smell the awfulness on them, and he can't drink that blood, right? And he's got to find clean people. But every time, and he hires a taxi cab driver who doesn't seem surprised at all. In fact, that man seems kind of pleased that his passenger is a vampire. And he annoys the vampire to no end, but the vampire doesn't want to kill him because he needs his services. And as they go around the town and he's sniffing out people who are pure that he can get their blood from, every time something goes wrong. And again, this book is undercut by that dark humor throughout. And these things that go wrong just drive him crazy because he's this close to finally feeding as he's slowly starving. Everything just goes awry. But at the end, he's going to meet an old frenemy of his from way back in the day. And when he and this frenemy get together, eventually one of them is going to have to go. One of them is not going to come out of this. And I'm not going to tell you who or how it ends or anything, but I absolutely love that ending. And you'll have to read about it for yourself, of course. But yeah, but I just love this journey between this cab driver and this vampire as his passenger, and they're just cruising the streets of New York City, sniffing out the people that don't have any COVID or anything, not even a little bit of trace in their blood because it's very dangerous for him to drink that, and then just having things just go very wrong all the time. And you kind of, again, it's one of those you kind of feel for the vampire after a while, you know. But of course, he's the bad guy, and he's just being annoyed by this taxi cab driver. But eventually, they form a kind of reluctant friendship at the end. And then, yeah, I'm not going to tell you about the end, but I'll just say that. Yeah, again, this is by David Wilson. This is the third book I covered by him. Indie horror community has these great stories that hardly anybody reads, and I want to shine a spotlight on them. So definitely, highly recommend this one. Pick it up at the link in the description, and you won't be disappointed. And as always, I want to say thank you for taking some of your time and spending it here with me. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.